Calling to order the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting of Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024 at 3:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge. Schweitzer.
Present. You have an outdated committee list.
It's open. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Present.
We have 3 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. A quorum being present, we will move on to the approval of the minutes from Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 15th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th Ward, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Browning.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
We have 3 aye votes.
With that, we have approved the minutes of Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. We will move to board bills for review. Alderman Clerk, how about you are technically first, but Alderman Spencer has some guests here. Is it all right if she goes first? Okay. Okay. If you have guests here too, we'll start with you. Okay, Alderman Spencer, if you're ready, then that's great. Okay, we will move to item number 2 and start with board bill number 31. Or sorry, with item number 3, board bill number 32. Alderman Spencer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Board Bill 32 is a board bill we introduced on the floor of the Board of Aldermen 2 weeks ago. What Board Bill number 32 would do is is authorizing the honorary street name of An Liang Way. What I was surprised to learn, what I hadn't known before, was that the city of St. Louis had a Chinatown. This was news to me, and I want to bring forward Mr. Peter Tao, and we can go ahead, and we have a short presentation for you, but I want to recognize members of the community who brought forward this aspect, incredibly rich history of our city, and really did the legwork in writing the ordinance before us that would authorize this honorary street name. I also want to mention, Madam Chair, that we do have an amendment that I'd like to recognize and make sure that we leave space to add those important historical details to the ordinance itself. But with that, if I could, turn it over to Mr. Tao to give us a little history of why this is so important and what we're going to be doing with this honorary street name.
Thank you. And just before we have anyone from the public speak, if anyone who is planning on speaking today on any bill can just raise their right hand and we'll quickly swear you in. If anyone who is planning on speaking could raise their right hand, and we will quickly do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Say, I do.
I do.
Thank you, and please continue. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Aside from what Ms. Spencer said about helping with the board bill and the amendment, I'd just like to read something that's more of a little testimony that gives a little recap on kind of what this is about. So I'm pleased to come before you to testify on behalf of those Chinese Americans that came before me here in downtown as early as 1857, St. Louisans I have never known. St. Louis had a Chinatown is a question that often pops up to this very day. I'm hoping after today that this question will no longer be asked by a St. Louisan, and that instead people will be asking with curiosity about the lives of the people that live there. That they will want to know who was in this small downtown community that persevered through so much discrimination and through truly difficult times in this country, yet chose to stay to play a role in shaping our St. Louis. I myself must confess that while I did know there was a Chinatown downtown, I did not know much, and I especially did not know anything through schooling. For I was born here in St. Louis, born to Chinese immigrants who came in 1947, and grew up when there were relatively few Chinese people here. I remember that I always had to go out of my way to say that I am here, I am relevant, and then explain where I really came from. Just like those living in Chinatown around the US, for some reason, because of appearances, it is never assumed that they or I was born here, that I too am an American. So my name is Peter Tao, a downtown business owner and architect by profession, an advocate for many AAPI organizations and causes, including OCA Advocates St. Louis, where I am the current board president. And as the great Michelle Lee described me in her recent KSD News coverage, I'm an accidental historian. Actually, I'm an amateur public historian is another way I get to wear, another name I get to wear, as I am currently working deeply and tirelessly with the Missouri Historical Society on a Chinese American collecting initiative where I am chair of the Chinese American Advisory Group, but one of many trying to tell the story. So I'm here to testify that while an honorary name is an incredibly important first step, and one I wholeheartedly support personally and as a representative of many others in the community, the sign only identifies a place where people will then wonder. Our greater community must eventually honor with more than a sign that many great individuals' accomplishments and stories have come out of this very Chinatown, that these stories have transcended through many generations, reaching far beyond St. Louis, and that their histories must be told and remembered so that we can learn and grow and to cherish our diversity. So finally, I thank Alderman Kara Spencer for taking this on and introducing Board Bill 32. She didn't bat an eye on this initiative. I hope the committee will feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and by chance today, since this is really an honor, so just so you know, Chinatown had many organizations, had a key organization called the On Leong Merchants Association. It goes back to the early 1900s and lasted till the 1960s in Chinatown. It was basically the organization that would represent the Chinese on business matters, immigration, anything, translation, etc. So its history is rich, which is why we are recommending that the sign be called On Leong Way, which by just literal translation also means peaceful and benevolent. What's important about a fella here is Mr. Don Ko, right here. Wait, Don. Don Ko is with Dragon Trading. Don Ko was one of the last members helping operate the On Leong in Chinatown before the end of the demolition of the whole neighborhood. I don't know, Don, you want to say anything about just?
Okay, let me introduce myself. I came to the United States in 1949, and when used to be back in the 50s, I went to that An Leong, and I'm the member of the An Leong Association. I'm also is a president of St. Louis chapter from 1977 and 1978, and then from up till in the 80s, I was St. Louis chapter president for about 3 terms. Every 2 years is one term, and I always been in business in St. Louis, Missouri. And when I had my laundry in 1953, I was on 4318 Eastern, used to be. Now they call it ML King. And I was also have a laundry on 4503 West Eastern, right next to the St. Louis August newspaper. We was there until 1968. And then I was working at Trader Vic from 1964 as a chef. And I worked there for 4.5 years. And then later on, in 1968, we decided to open a restaurant and a Dippin' Motel on Kingside Way, about 2 blocks north of the Taste Hotel. And those days, Harry Fender used to be a radio personality. He used to come by, and Ted Coupler, he used to come by also. And then also another construction company right now on Page, they are famous. That owner used to come by also to the restaurant. So, and then later on, I opened a restaurant on 5814 Natural Bridge. So I always been a resident of St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow.
And my father, he been to St. Louis since he was 1921. Wow. 1921. And he used to have a laundry at McMillan and Taylor. And there that Missouri Baptist Hospital used to be there. So they moved out to the county. So I'm 91, I'm still working. Well, part-time.
That's a lot of different things to have done throughout your life.
So
Rich history.
my father also, he is a member of the Onleung Association. So Onleung has been in St. Louis for a long, long time.
Thank you for sharing that history with us and for coming today and talking with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Spencer, did you have anyone else you wanted to have speak?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes the presentation portion of Board Bill 32. I would like to introduce an amendment. Again, this was authored by Mr. Tao. This amendment to Board Bill just adds an important detail here. I'll read it to you. Whereas in 1904, St. Louis and the United States would joyously celebrate the Louisiana Purchase, the World's Fair, and invite China to participate in the fair, yet confine, I didn't expect to get choked up, confine their Chinese workers to the fairgrounds, where due to the aforementioned Exclusion Act, were granted temporary admittance to the U.S. for only the duration of the fair, and each worker with a $500 bond attached to their head to ensure their return to China upon the close of the fair, the total of which would be handcuffed in pairs, regardless of illness, and marched to the Wabash train station to board the guarded trains to San Francisco. A dark portion of our city's history, certainly, but I think we often think of the World's Fair, and I still do, as such a triumph for our city, an era of opulence and one of great success. But certainly, I think it's important for us to recognize facts and under which tragedies that opulence was. And so I think this is an important admission to the board bill and recognition of all aspects of that history. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the committee to consider adoption of Amendment Number 1 to Board Bill 32.
Thank you. I will accept a motion to adopt
So
Amendment
moved.
1 to Board Bill number 32.
Second.
Any call for previous?
Previous roll.
Thank you. Any objection to previous roll? Thank you. We have adopted Amendment Number 1 to Board Bill number 32. Alderman Spencer, you may proceed with Board Bill number 32 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I'll just close out by saying it's a great honor. Mr. Tao was so generous in giving me some credit here, but this was entirely put together by members of the community. And I think that is just the most important aspect of this. This is a community-led effort to recognize the rich history of our city. I'm excited to see the wayfinding and other ways to share this rich knowledge of our rich history with the broader public. And with that, I ask for your favorable consideration of Board Bill 32 as amended.
Thank you. And before we do that, any members of the committee have any comments or questions? Alderman Velasquez. Sorry.
Oh, no, you got it. First, I want to thank Alderwoman Spencer for bringing this important piece of history to light. I want to thank Mr. Tao and Mr. Ko for sharing your stories. I first learned about Chinatown about 10 years ago when Yayo Arts used to be up at Jefferson and had an exhibit, and I was stunned, right? And I also just want to say, just generally, I think it's important that we can't forget our past when we look in our future. You know, when we talk about these conversations about housing and displacement, these are consequences. We're looking back on those, on consequences of decision made when we I would imagine purposefully displaced a community. And when we talk about growth and we talk about how important new Americans and immigrants are to the growth of the region and the growth of the country, we also have to think about and reflect on our actions to make sure we're not displacing communities, not just immigrants, any communities. So I just want to thank you. I know you've done a lot of hard work for the Chinese community and the immigrant community and the AIP community, and I'm very grateful that you were here today. Mr. Ko, I'm glad you were here to tell your story too. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Vice Chair Browning.
Thank you. Just echo my colleagues' comments, and proud to be a co-sponsor on this, and really pleased to see so many of my colleagues also co-sponsoring this. It's incredibly important, and I appreciate your amendment to recognizing the history of the fair. There's a good exhibit at the St. Louis or at the Missouri History Museum right now on the fair that does go a little bit into the good and the bad that came along with that. So I encourage everybody to go see that. But this will be a wonderful way to remember the history of St. Louis and hopefully spark that curiosity in others. They ask that question of what happened here, because I think that St. Louis's history is rich and wonderful, and it's all the people along the way that made it that way. So thank you again.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. Madam Clerk, if you could please add me as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
Thank you. And Alderman Spencer, it sounded like you already closed. Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill number 32 as amended.
So moved.
Second, previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. There's been a call for previous roll. Any discussion? Any objection to previous roll? Okay, we have, thank you very much. We have passed Board Bill number 32 as amended with the due pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderman Spencer. Alderman Clark Hubbard, you are recognized on Board Bill 26.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. Madam Clerk, can you read the summary for Board Bill 26?
The Board Bill 26, introduced by Alderwoman Shamim Clark Hubbard. The proposed bill directs the Director of Streets to permanently close, barricade, or otherwise impede the flow of traffic on the 5800 block of Cates Avenue by blocking the flow of traffic at the intersection Cates Avenue and Hamilton Avenue.
All right, thank you. I'm excited today because, as you noted earlier about my colleague, Alderwoman Spencer, having people here, I have people here too. And this is my favorite part. Everyone knows how much I speak about the committee hearing part and the importance of that and the engagement that our constituency and the public can have in this process, and it being the only place. So again, I'm excited to see them here. I'm going to hold my comments so that we can give anyone who might have signed up time to speak. If anyone is here that hadn't signed up and wants to speak, please do. But this board bill came to fruition. It was first passed to me by the residents, the homeowners on this residential block, over maybe going on almost a year ago, because it was prior to, I remember it being prior to National Night Out of last year. they've sent me plenty of letters since then. They show up at the community meetings, again, reiterating that this request. This request has happened before in other areas of the ward, but what I'll note about this block is that it's all residential. It doesn't have any churches, schools, public entities, or public amenities like parks on it. The blocks that are just south of it to Delmar, so if you can envision, this is Kate's at Hamilton, Clemens at Hamilton, and Enright at Hamilton are both closed off this way that they have requested, as well as the blocks east and west of them, the way this neighborhood is set up. So the 59-6000 block of Kate's is blocked at Hodiamont. The 5700 block of Kate's is blocked by Great Rivers Greenway. The trail, I'm blocking on the trail, but it's blocked by by Great Rivers Greenway. So I just want to give you a vision of what the area looks like. I've been receiving some, I will note today, just in case they're watching, I did receive 2 people in opposition. One, I'm waiting to hear if they wanted me to verbally say who they were, or they just wanted me to mention an opposition. And then I have received several more letters of support in favor. And one of them kind of has me a little taken aback, and I want to read this again for the record because it was submitted for written comment. But I know we'll receive that, but it won't be shared with the public. And in these comments, in this written support, it said that there was a reel. Everyone knows what a reel is, right? Mm-hmm. On social media. There's a reel that's been shared. And in this reel, it talks about if you're on a high-speed chase, and if you're not familiar about high-speed chases, that's most of the time running from the police or running from another bad actor. And in that reel, it says, recommends rather, to hang a left on Hamilton and cut through Kate's to Goodfellow if they want to avoid being caught. That's heartbreaking for me. Again, this is something that's being shared publicly. This is not a joke for first and foremost, the residents on that block, but any of us in that neighborhood as well. This is the neighborhood that I live in. We know the 10th Ward has 8 neighborhoods in it, but this is actually the neighborhood that I live in. I grew up most of my childhood life, about half of my childhood life on Cabaney Place, which is just just north of this block, just northwest of this block. It's also a cutoff block with a cul-de-sac. So again, I wanted to share that publicly because that's an important factor here as we move forward with this. Now, in this bill, it doesn't state how this street will be blocked. We haven't gotten there yet. We're getting past this part, which is something that we go through with the streets department and what we used to have formerly a street closure committee, but we don't. I cannot get a real answer on what the process was prior to me getting in the office 6 years ago for all these other streets that I've mentioned, aforementioned, that were blocked off, and what went on with those. So I'm just here again today and hoping to hear from my constituents and then speak with you all again about Board Bill 26. So with that, I would like to call up the speakers.
Thank you. I think my committee will be fine hearing from speakers first. Yes. If everyone who is planning on speaking can please sign in, unless you have guest speakers or are you wanting public testimony, because then I'm going to have the clerk call them. Public testimony? Okay. So, ma'am, the clerk will call you when it is your turn. Thank you so much. No, it's okay. We do kind of guest speakers and then public testimony is sort of different. For our publics, how many speakers or how many public testimony signups do we have?
We have 5, 4 in support, 1 in opposition.
Okay, so please go support, opposition, and then the rest of the support.
I'm sorry, 5 in support, 1 in opposition.
Okay, just start with kind of going every other until you can't anymore, so just after. And for everyone who's speaking today, we will have a 3-minute time limit for everyone speaking as part of public comment. And everyone who's speaking, I did swear in at the beginning, unless you weren't. Okay, wonderful. Madam Clerk, please call up the first person.
Felicia Hinton Ramey.
It's you. Wonderful. So glad we worked that out.
Hi, I'm back.
Thank you for being here. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Public Infrastructure Committee. I wanted to first say that my name is Felicia Hinton Ramey, and for full disclosure, I am a city employee, but I'm going to remove this because today I'm representing myself as a resident of the 5800 block of Cates and a taxpayer, et cetera, in support of Board Bill 26. I want to say thank you to our Alderwoman, Shamim Clark Hubbard, because as she said, we've attended our neighborhood meetings and expressed our concern about the flow of traffic and drug activity, et cetera, on our block. Our block, to give you a flavor of it, 5800 block of Cates has a number of historic homes, about half historic, half new. Many of us here are of the newer homes that were built through Vadarat, but then there are a representative here of the historic homes. And just to tell you that a lot of the people who have been there for like over 40 years, many of them, and they have tried to maintain their block. They've done a wonderful job, but they're exhausted. And now we are coming in with the new energy, and since National Night Out, we have been marrying the old with the new and rebuilding that block in the neighborhood. What frustrates us, because we are doing everything that we can to try and maintain a great neighborhood, is that we are trying to eliminate the bad actors and the old bad behavior that has plagued that neighborhood. And I've seen that neighborhood transition over the years because I'm a longtime city resident for really all of my life. I even had traveled through that neighborhood when my daughter was 3 years old 20 years ago to get her to daycare around the corner from where I live now. And it's come a long way, a lot of new homes, et cetera. I walk my dog every day on the block and on the blocks north of Cates Avenue where there are existing street closures. And one thing that I love and I wish for on our block is the same level of tranquility and sense of security and safety on that block, because most of the people on the block, they just come through, they come to because they live there, or there might be service people coming, UPS, et cetera, or somebody coming to visit, but it's very quiet and tranquil and safe. And we have on our block, what I love is with the new neighbors and the old, we've got a very diverse block. We've got people who have been there historically for a while, young, older, and I'm in that older group, unfortunately, or fortunately. We've got young couples with children, those without children who are about to be on the block, and I know I'm running out of time, so I want them to speak. But our children play on the block. When I'm walking my dog, I and my family members have seen the pool of cars that line up, and I guess you could call it a pop-up, where they are accustomed to dealing drugs on the block before the houses were built. They just sit there for about 30 minutes in their cars with them running, and then the seller comes by, hands it out the window, car to car, and then they zoom off because they just go straight through. And then the other big thing that is a risk to us is that, I just learned this today, that they got it on public media, that they just drive through the block, I know, at 60 miles an hour because it's just a through street. And we just can't have that because one of our kids or one of the kids on the block is going to get hurt. I'm going to sit down because I think I'm over, but we've got a lot of personal experiences that we want to share with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Madam Clerk, just making sure you have the timer running, right? You're doing the time. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Our next speaker?
Leah Lunsford Latter. Oh, it's her letter? It's a letter. Okay, we have it. We have it, yes. Janie Lawson.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for putting this forward for us. I appreciate that. I'm new to St. Louis. I haven't been here that long, probably about 2 years now. Just recently moved in the neighborhood, September of last year. So right before National Night Out. during that time, my experience for the past few months, right after we moved in, very shortly after, my partner got into an accident right there on the corner of, what was it, Hamilton and Kate's. He was turning in to come home, and somebody driving recklessly down Hamilton sideswiped or hit him, spun him around. He hit a telephone pole. Thank goodness he's okay. But my experience in the neighborhood has been that the drug transactions on the road, the people sitting, as Felicia had mentioned, and then also just the speeding down the road, just reckless driving, just turning fast, going, like she's mentioned, like 60 miles an hour. But being new to the area, I want the area to be safe. I too walk my dog in the neighborhood. And as Felicia mentioned, some of the other streets near to us are very tranquil. They're very quiet. And I want our experience to be the same way. Our road as well is a one-way street right now, and there's cars going both directions, speeding down the road. It's not just one way. When you come out of your driveway, you have to look both ways and not just down the one-way street as it should be even. But I know with cutting it off, it'll turn it into a two-way street. But I think that'll be a lot safer. There's definitely room. It's a wide street. So that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Jake Barton in opposition.
It's all right if I hold this?
Sure.
All right. Good afternoon, Chairwoman, members of the committee. My name is Jake Banton. I am a resident of the West End, also live on Cates Avenue, although not the same block as my fellow neighbors over there. I live in the 6,000 block, which is just west. And ironically, I realize a cul-de-sac street. However, I am here in opposition today for this street closure for a number of reasons. I think that one, it's a generally poor planning principle. I think this is something that St. Louis has experimented with over the past 30 plus years. We have a long history of closing off streets in the city to varying degrees of success, but overall, I would argue, probably unsuccessful. And I think that as a city moving forward into the future, we should be looking up at opening up streets, not closing down streets. It was recently celebrated just south of our neighborhood in the West End, the reopening of Clara Avenue at Del Mar, literally removing a barrier to segregation. And I think that we in the West End ought to be breaking down these barriers, removing existing barriers, and the ones that are already existing, I would be a proponent of eliminating the cul-de-sac on my street. But two, I also have an issue with the process in general for a zoning change. I sit on the planning commission for the city. You have to have a public notice posted on the site. I'm not sure what exactly, along with my alderwoman here, what the process is exactly for closing a street, but I would argue that a street closure has potentially just as much impact, if not more impact, to the entire neighborhood. It's not something that just affects the residents on the street. It could change traffic patterns across the entire neighborhood. And this is a street that is somewhat situated in the middle of the neighborhood, so it would potentially divert traffic into other areas of the neighborhood. And finally, I would say that just as a matter of policy, the idea of closing down a street, making it inaccessible to members of the general public to, not inaccessible, but put in a situation where people wouldn't be driving on it on a normal day-to-day basis, but it would still be a public asset, a public street, something that we as city taxpayers would be essentially paying for maintenance, yet really only benefiting the members of those streets. There's an inequity to that I think is not often talked about, but essentially we'd be creating a private street for the benefit of these residents while sort of eliminating the openness and the availability of that for neighbors on the the other parts of the neighborhood. So I appreciate hearing all my neighbors' perspectives. I think that perhaps money to improve the street should be invested in other traffic calming measures like speed humps or curb cuts, or not curb cuts.
Excuse me,
bump
that's
outs.
your time.
Thank you. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Paula first in support.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Paula First, and I would like to mention that I am a mother with 3 young children, ages 8, 7, and 2. It would bring me great comfort in knowing that my children and my family, when we're outside in the comfort of our home, we are safe. But since living on the street, I have learned quickly that I have to be extremely cautious due to the recklessness and carelessness of people using our block to speed and participate in illegal activity. I have young children that enjoy skating, scootering, and being on the sidewalk where they play. And even though they are playing on the sidewalk, I'm extremely nervous because I don't know if a speeding vehicle will come. I have a 2-year-old who is unaware of street safety, and he often runs down the driveway into the street not knowing the danger. I find myself having to chase after him trying to get to him before he reaches the street and before any vehicle comes. This is a great fear of mine that he gets hit by a car. And if the street was blocked off, this fear of mine would decrease greatly, knowing that I would only have to worry about local residents. I have grown to love this area, but I cannot put myself at ease knowing the dangers of the reckless driving.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Charles Quarles. In support.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us on today. I guess I'm the Moses of this bunch. I've been in the neighborhood right at 40 years, and I've endured the drug deals for years. I've endured the crime for years. I've endured most of the hardships that come with living in an area that there is no investment. I find it kind of ironic that my neighbor that's down the street is opposing street closure when he actually lives on a street that's blocked. The drug deals, they continue. The speeding continue. When will we have better for our community? We have a pretty large investment in our homes. I'm a disabled veteran with issues, and I won't go into all that, but when will this end? It's known about the speeding. It's known about the drug deals. The only viable solution is to block the street. Not only do I live in this community, I pastor a small church on Martin Luther King in the same block. We need this done, and we need it done ASAP. Our property value depends on it. Our children's safety depends on it. And that's it. Thank you for it.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Dylan, can't pronounce the last name.
Hello. Hi, I'm not the best speaker, so I'm just going to read off of what I wrote.
Doing great.
Hello, we stand before you to address the few issues that have, as a community, we've been dealing with and why we need to close off the street. First and foremost, one of the most concerning problems we have been facing is the presence of drug dealers and motorcycle gangs utilizing our road as their own personal playground. These criminal elements not only pose a threat to public safety, but also tarnish the reputation of our community that we are trying to build. By closing off the road, we significantly reduce their ability to operate freely and disrupt their illicit activities. Furthermore, there has been disturbing instances of myself being followed home on multiple occasions, and the open nature of the road provides ample opportunity for nefarious individuals to prey upon victims. Closing off the road would create a more secure environment not only for our community, but for ourselves. Incessant noise pollution, also caused by the extremely loud cars racing up our community, is a constant roar of engines, screeching tires, and disrupt our peace and tranquility at night, making it very difficult for the residents to enjoy their home. Closing off the road would significantly reduce the noise pollution and create a more peaceful environment for all. In conclusion, the need for closed-off road is undeniable. It's imperative that we take action to address the issues of drug dealers. Thank you. Sorry. Drug dealers, motorcycle gangs, and reckless driving and noise pollution that have plagued. What does that mean?
Yeah, go ahead and finish your
That
sentence.
have plagued our community for far too long. By closing off the road, we can create a safer, more secure environment for all citizens and reclaim our community. We hope that you will stand with us to make our community a better place for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
That's all our public speakers.
Okay, and you said we had some written comment. Is there a number in favor and in opposition?
It's just one in support.
Just one in support. Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, have you come back up?
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Someone just raised their hand, so let me transfer them over.
For pointing that out.
Mr. Carson, could you please unmute your phone, your mic, and turn on your camera?
Sir, before you begin, I'll need to swear you in. Is it Mr. Carlson? Hi, Mr. Carlson. If you can raise your right hand, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you affirm that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Yes. Since 1985, I have owned a lot in the 6,000 block of Cates, and I live east of Goodfellow in the neighborhood. I have been a neighborhood resident for over 40 years. And I'm concerned that we continue to have new people moving into the neighborhood and wanting to close off their private streets. There has been a notorious drug dealer on that block for the 40 years I have lived in the neighborhood, and the neighbors have never gotten that person out of the neighborhood. Now suddenly that there are a lot of new houses built on the street, they're making the effort to close it off. It will affect a lot of us who do live in the neighborhood and want to get from one side of the neighborhood to the other, and so I am speaking against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Okay, we will move on to questions from the committee. Alderman Velasquez, any questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Vice Chair Browning?
Thank you. And Alderman Clark Hubbard, I understand you're representing your community, and I think that's important to respond to requests on the street. I have a couple questions because I think the closing of streets is is a drastic measure. And I say this as someone who lives in a neighborhood where there are closed off streets throughout the neighborhood. It was done a long time ago in an effort to fight crime. And today we find that it's actually deterring our ability to fight crime because the police don't feel comfortable driving down blocks where they have to take a dangerous turnaround if they were to get in a engagement with anybody committing a crime. So I'm now facing recommendations to open a street so that it can be better patrolled. And I have this elsewhere, even in the Central West End, we have closed off streets that are not patrolled because they are closed off streets. So I want to recognize that there is a trade-off here and ask, is there any other traffic calming measures that you have looked at to perhaps reduce the speed or make it more inconvenient for people to use this as a cut through?
Yes, so again, let me see. I've been here 6 years. This request has been going on prior to my position, and some of those comments were asked not to be shared, so I'll leave that to just know that this didn't just start with me. This didn't just start now at this time. And you did hear from people that have lived on the block for years and people that are there now. The streets that are blocked off just south of them similarly have people that have lived there for years and people that live there now. The streets that are, again, surrounding. And I did need to note that this is already a one-way street. That was the first part of traffic calming that they tried, again, prior to me. Speed humps are on the table, but we all know how we're all waiting for speed humps. I understand, and I share some frustration and empathy with the other side of this, but overwhelmingly, I also share the frustration and empathy with the people that are greatly impacted, that live on this block, that consciously are making this decision. Even after talking back and forth, I mentioned that they didn't bring this to me before we walked in here or even when I introduced it 2 weeks ago. They've been on this path for years, long before me. And then again, the new energy in the block, which you can understand. You know, if you've been on something for years and you keep getting pushed back, not for a reason of that you couldn't, it was just wasn't the time. And if you could note that, not that you couldn't, not that we wouldn't, not that it wasn't already in a plan of succession from the blocks that were built up just like this block prior to. But you get frustrated and you want to give up. But again, when new energy comes in, just like we're new energy down here at the board, you want to push back and do what you can for your constituents. And so, again, I followed the best path I could for them from day one, which is how we got here today. I do know that the street department is watching because they've reached out to me and listening. They can recognize where comments are coming from and what the streets look like, you know, in those comments within the area. Again, this is already a one-way street going east, not going west. The path going east leads you to Goodfellow, which is your only path out, because again, if you go one block east, you end up in Ruth Porter Mall, which I couldn't remember earlier. If you try to go west from the street, you end up at another dead end at Hodian Mall, where that street is blocked. So it's hard for me, I hear you, Alderman Browning, it's hard for me to compare this block to any blocks in the Central West End because we know the layer of policing that's in the Central West End versus the layer of policing that is north of Delmar. And we know that there's no comparison to that. So again, I hear your comments and I hear what you're saying, and if there's something else, you know, we can explore that too, but for now, I think that we should give them what they have been dealing with, an answer, a response to them that they haven't been able to receive. And we're in a position to do that.
Well, thank you. And I just have one bone to pick is that one-way streets actually encourage speeding. And that's part of the problem, and that we're also facing in other neighborhoods that I represent. And so I just want to make sure people are aware of what, the drawbacks of this might be. And I absolutely hear the stories. I hear the problems. We deal with them in the neighborhoods I represent too, including the Central West End. I don't like when people diminish the Central West End as if it's all rich. I'm talking about up on Washington. We had multiple shootings in the past year. We have multiple problem properties up there. And the reason that we need to open up the street is because the police will not. They have told me they will not patrol it. And that's just the regular police. It's not a secondary patrol. It's not anything else. So I want to make sure that we're using best practices here. I'm not a traffic engineer, and I feel like when we were making these permanent decisions about our streets, that we really should be looking at what is the best approach that we do this with. So one more question is have you conferred with the fire department about this street closure and identified if they have any concerns about it?
Well, that's part of this process. So again, in me trying to navigate, there is no rule book for it. And again, the street closure committee that I heard of once doesn't exist anymore. And I want to go back and say, please don't think I was in any way trying to diminish your neighborhood, your neighborhoods, your blocks, we are all dealing with the same issues, be it to the 10th degree or the 1st degree in all of our neighborhoods. So that's not the comparison I was trying to make. The comparison I was making was the fact that there are multiple layers of policing in areas that they're not in this area. And also, that's disheartening to hear that a police officer told you that they won't patrol that. I've never had anyone from St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department tell me that they would not patrol an area, that they would not respond to an area because the street was blocked. And again, you heard me say all around this block, for the most part, if it doesn't have a church or a public park or anything on like that, it is blocked. Again, and they only have that one layer over there, so they can't call any secondary, anything like that. And they've never said, no, we're not gonna go over there because the street is blocked. I did want to put that out because I think it's important when we share comments like that, and on behalf, and I really respect my relationship I have with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and how they respond when we call. So again, I'm not sure what you would want me to say that's going to be different from what you would want to hear, because again, we clearly have two different plights on that. And to note that what my constituent neighbor, friend, Jake, mentioned, we did take down, we did have a gate that came down at Delmar and Clara. And that was a different situation than this. It really was, and you can't compare them. And here, I met with 2 residents off of Clara, ironically today, about reprogramming or repurposing that area and what that means in that area. And they have a very active neighborhood association that fought. And we had dedicated meetings to get that gate down. And there's a lot of history around that gate that you can't just wrap up in saying it was a gate that was taken down. But again, Delmar is a major thoroughfare is in comparison to this residential block as well. So that was the only note I wanted to make to your point, because I've been on the fight that you had about opening up streets. But this one has presented and continues to present different to me. And I will respect your position either way, but I just want to make sure you know that this is not, nothing nefarious, that we're still trying to just run around closing up streets, because I do get that. But this situation and this block, I think, presents different than the argument that, again, I've been on that side of for opening up streets.
Yeah, and thank you. I think I just want to express my desire for a better way to do this in the future, because when we don't look at this in a comprehensive way, what was referred to here is, well, if you go to other blocks, they can't go down that because it ends in a dead end. And so, or other streets have blocked themselves off. And so that's why they're using Kate's to go down. And in that, you kind of see that the problems on Kate's have been caused by the other streets closing themselves off. And so I think that looking at this in a way that's not just local to that specific intersection, but looking at the broader problem and trying to figure out a solution that works for not just this street, but all the streets around. And again, I understand you are responding to constituent requests. That is the strongest thing we can respond to as Alder people. That is who we represent at the end of the day. And if the large majority of the people on your blocks are saying we need this to stay safe, then I think you have to listen. But in the future, I'd love to see a bigger conversation about this. I'm happy to support this today. I would only ask that in looking at the street closure, that you look at a non-permanent option so that you don't end up creating an obstacle in the future if this ends up needing to be changed. So something like pots or what they call sleigh balls or something that,
Ingracia balls.
Yeah, so the sleigh balls are the ones that block the street. Ingracia balls are the ones that calm the street.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You gotta know your St. Louis terminology. But yeah, just something that isn't like super permanent, because I think at the end of the day, this whole area, I've just been exploring it on Google Maps as we've been talking, and I think this whole area could use traffic calming throughout. And I'd love to see that prioritized in the future.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Alderman Browning, because again, the board bill doesn't state how it's going to be closed. I would say shamo pots are actually a more permanent, or the balls that you mentioned would be more permanent than what we have, again, in the two adjacent blocks going south, which are gates that could be open, similar to how you have gates in the Central West End that your constituents are able to open and close. And we have some, that's not on the table today, what it's going to look like, because we haven't gotten there yet. Also, to your point about the first responders and talking to them, they can't move shamo pots, they can't move balls, but as it relates to those gates, and the gates similar to your gates, they either have keys, or if they're ballards, they have the key that will lower them, so that all of those different measures are taken into place. So I agree about comprehensive things. I have been around this neighborhood several times. The street calming, again, with those humps, or there's humps that are on the table for other blocks around there we can have them in that. We're hopefully going to be getting here soon, moving forward on those. We can't put humps on Goodfellow or Hamilton, those second arterials. So again, comprehensive, what this, I think our conversation speaks to, is the need that both of us have reflected for that Office of Transportation, or what we can have here in the city of St. Louis, that it would be there. Again, wisdom and expertise that goes into place. But for now, to your point, we have what we have, and we have to use the tools we have to speak to what a quality of life is, especially for people that live it.
Well, thank you. And I hope this solves the problem. I really do. And I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning. Alderwoman Velasquez, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Alderman Clark. Just as the newest addition to this session, to this committee, I'm still kind of learning about things, but I think I just want to echo, we have to use the tools we have, and I think that it does merit, not because of this situation, but that we do need to have a broader conversation about how we do things, because it's not the Board of Traffic Engineers, it's the Board of Aldermen, and we've got to let the experts do that. But in lieu of that, we have to protect our community. So I understand that, but I also hear the legit concerns about process, and it's concerning to me that even as a member of this board, that it's hard for you to figure out the process, which I think is the real thing that we need to address. So I will support this bill, but I think that, I know I want to speak for Chairwoman Schweitzer, but I think that there's a real concern and commitment to looking at the systems that we have in place, or the lack thereof. But in lieu of that, we need to protect people. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I tend to agree with my colleagues that we're in a situation where sometimes doing what feels like the right thing can also be the wrong thing, and the wrong thing can be the right thing, and it's just how you weigh the options that are in front of you. So do you have anything that you'd like to say to close?
No, I just appreciate this time, and knowing that this part of the process is necessary. I thank everyone for showing up. And, you know, this doesn't mean here, unfortunately, for what I know won't sound good to you all, this doesn't mean we're gonna wake up and it'll be closed off in the morning. This is part of the process, but it's a very important part, and I appreciate you all taking the time to come out, and hopefully being able to move us forward on this. And then whatever that looks like when we look back at this neighborhood, if whether I'm in office or not, you'll know how to advocate this process forward, either way.
Thank you. With that, I will ask for a do pass recommendation for Board Bill number 20.
So moved.
Second.
Call for previous roll.
Any discussion? Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we have passed Board Bill 26 out of committee with the do pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you.
With that, I will move to Board Bill number 31, which is me, if Vice Chair Browning doesn't mind taking over for a moment.
Happily. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board Bill 31.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning and member of the committee for hearing this bill. This bill is the authorization of the 2024 St. Louis Works and the 50/50 sidewalk program citywide. It works through a variety of things, a variety of budgeted items, does work through appropriating $5,200,000 from the Street Improvement Fund for various work that will be occurring in our city over the next year or so. If you look at the board bill, you will see that there is a budget exhibit at the last page that goes over the various different ways that this money will be allocated. You may notice there is money, $2,127,000. That's money that goes directly divided between our wards that we allocate in paving projects, sidewalk projects, board. And then you can see the rest of where it goes, whether it's personnel, whether it's talking about the different benefits that workers receive through this fund, whether it is different equipment or fleet services or leases. Various things are all laid out here on that budget in attachment A. I do have one amendment if we would possibly adopt that. That one is, this is a bill that's introduced almost every year. And in doing that, there was a miss of the words 28, or it should say 14. So if it's possible to have that amendment adopted, I would appreciate that.
Okay, I will accept a motion to adopt the amendment number 1 to Board Bill 31.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Previous roll.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, we have adopted amendment number 1 to Board Bill 31. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you may proceed.
Thank you. That is the majority of my presentation today. This is a bill that we need to keep moving so that we can get money where it needs to be, which is on our street. So thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll see if the committee, we don't have any speakers from the public, it doesn't appear. Anyone on Zoom?
No speakers, no one on Zoom.
Okay, Alderwoman Velasquez, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
I have no questions other than just looking at the numbers here, and I'm sure glad I don't have to make these decisions. I think every single one of these places could use more money. So glad to help get this money out on the streets. And with that, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized to close.
Thank you so much. I would ask for this committee's favorable consideration and a do pass recommendation of Board Bill 31 as amended.
Okay, I will accept a motion to pass Board Bill 31.
So moved.
Pass recommendation. I'll second that.
Previous roll.
Hearing no objections, congratulations, you have passed Board Bill 31.
Thank you.
And handing back the chairmanship to you, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much to this committee for being here and for the staff for being here and for being here for this meeting. We'll move on in the agenda. We have no resolutions for review, no committee discussions. We've already acknowledged our written testimony. Was there any other written testimony to acknowledge, Madam Clerk?
No more written testimonies.
Okay. Announcements. Okay. Alderman, did you have? Okay. I would like to announce or to remind anyone watching that we do have the Water Division review. Do you have an announcement? Okay, I'll finish mine and then you can go. So as we pass the water rate increase back last session, one of the things that was in that bill was a yearly review of our water division. They did turn in some reporting at the beginning of May as necessitated by that board bill. To follow up on that, we sent a series of questions provided by a variety of stakeholders in the public and by aldermen and by people who asked questions in the committee over the last year or so, and have given those questions to the Water Division, and they will be doing a presentation of their yearly report, as well as answering many of our further questions. That will be taking place here in the Kennedy Room, June 5th. That's a Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. During the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting. It will be the only thing on the agenda that day, so we'll be really digging into the Water Division. Anyone at home is listening, please put that on your calendar and participate. Alderman Velazquez, you're welcome to make your announcement.
My announcement, I think, is a little less exciting than yours, but wanted to just share, I know that you both have been posting it on social media about the next public open house for the Kings Highway expansion or traffic calming, safety, arterial meeting is from 4 to 7, Thursday at the Wool Center. So
Fantastic.
I will be there. I know you two have already made it. I'm going to go to this one.
I appreciate it. It was a great, I think that's great. Thank you for making that announcement. Vice Chair Browning.
Yes, thank you for that. And not expanding. We do not need to expand Kings Highway. Hopefully we are calming it. And also want to remind people of the Tower Grove Connector open house that is occurring right now until 7 p.m. Over at Missouri Foundation for Health. That's 4254 Vista. So stop watching this and go over and participate in that, because we hear from you. Exciting project. And yeah, please do be sure to make the Kings Highway engagement tomorrow as well. We definitely need your feedback on that as well.
Thank you. Great announcements, everyone. We will move on with our agenda to excused aldermen. I would like to please excuse Alderman Vollmer and Alderman Keyes for necessary absence.
Do I need to second that?
You don't need to second it.
So noted.
Okay, thank you. The clerk and I have a whole thing. Yeah. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Previous roll. Wait, which one?
No objections.
Okay, no objections to previous roll. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.